This is the Hounds 2026 panel, Anthrocon, Western Pennsylvania edition. So this is a panel I've hosted a couple of times now at various cons. It's usually kind of the same format, but a little bit different every time because I always cover regional geology, and the fun part about that is it always changes. So what I have for you guys today is a presentation on the local geologic history of the area. I'm going to probably do a little bit more of a I'm going to go on some side tangents as well, just kind of talk about this. I'm going to try to keep it to 15 minutes, so, but yeah, this is Fishbait here. They are helping me out with this panel, and I also have a couple other people. You might have seen them at the door, or Ty's right here is filming, so these are the people who kind of make this panel happen, so please, if you take some time to thank them as well for helping out. Anyways, fish! That's how I'm going to change slides. Fish! 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 Okay, so Earth forms about 4.6 billion years ago, and there's a lot that happens between 4.6 billion years ago and where I'm going to start with the Cambrian period. So I'm going to pull this cool thing that we do in geology where we forget everything that starts with the Cambrian period, mostly due to time constraints right now because I can't go into the whole spiel. But anyways, fish. Okay. A lot of things happen with mountain building, and eventually the area of Western Pennsylvania and a lot of adjacent states end up with this huge area, and this is not what it looked like at the time, but it was a large, low-lying flat area where on an inland continent called the Appalachian Basin. So the Appalachian Basin is a big player in a lot of Western Pennsylvania rocks, and the reason for that, and fish, is it helps us get the age of little guys. So during the Cambrian and the Ordovician periods, which are somewhere in the ballpark of like 400 million years ago. This is when life is first kind of getting its foothold in the door. This is, if you've heard of the Cambrian explosion, this is where that starts. Pennsylvania actually has some really cool rocks from the Cambrian explosion. So that's super cool to see. Anyways, yep. So most of the animals that lived at this time were small marine organisms living in a warm, shallow sea that would have existed because of that basin. So the Appalachian Basin is accumulating sediments, and as we accumulate sediments, as we have very prosperous ecosystems in shallow marine environments, we actually do get a lot of fossils. Fish. Okay, so this is one of those fossils. This is actually found in a quarry in Pennsylvania. Now this is actually in I think it's Lassiter or Lancaster County? Lancaster County. Okay, so there's actually a really cool site for all sorts of really cool animals that lived during the Cambrian period in Lancaster County. This is a trilobite from that site. I actually tried to get a picture of an Anomalocaris on here because they actually did find an Anomalocaris fossil there, but I could not get it to work. So you have a trilobite though, so he's cool. Anyways, fish. Okay. So we are exclusively talking about the Silurian period for a little bit, which is my favorite geologic period, and that is 100% biased, and there are fossils all from the Silurian period here. So things are pretty much kind of big picture, kind of staying the same in Pennsylvania at this point. This is a period that ran from 440 to 420 million years ago. It has, new life forms actually do start to appear, so we actually do start to get life forms that are making their way onto land. The first land plants appear during the Silurian period. The seas are dominated by various invertebrates still, but we're starting to get fish, and we're starting to get like predatory fish, but still the arthropods and vertebrates of this time period are still the primary predatory animals at the time. So we actually have a plushie of a sea scorpion. I wanted to bring the real fossil that I have of a sea scorpion. I forgot him at home, so that was only about an hour and a half away before I remembered that I forgot. But we have a plushie stuff. He's cool stuff. All right. Fish. Okay. Coal. Coal is a big picture. Coal is huge in Pennsylvania. If you've anywhere in this area, coal is a huge deal. So the reason we have a lot of coal here is because as that Appalachian Basin is filling up, so of course the Appalachian Basin is like, basically we've had a lot of warm shallow seas prior to this. The Appalachian Basin is starting to fill with sediment though, because there's some mountain building events that are associated with an upcoming events at the end of the Permian period. But for now, we have this really vast area of swamplands that cover the area now. So most of our Appalachian Basin is now a land ecosystem, and we have some really dynamic and just some really awesome forests. Fish. Okay, so we have some really crazy cool animals. This is a very alien landscape at the time. We have Arthropleura, which is a humongous millipede. It would have reached anywhere from 6 to 8 feet long. It just an absolutely massive bug. We had giant amphibians as well. Salamanders regularly reached, lengths of 4 to 10 feet long, but still kind of looked like salamanders, which was really fun. They're called tetrapods, and they are some of the first animals with backbones to come onto the surface and kind of fill our ecosystems. And then we also had some giant dragonfly fossils, a lot of our plant fossils in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, which are actually pretty easy to find. I even found some behind my hotel, which was fun. There's a lot of plants preserved. They look like some of them are like ferns, and then you also get some other cool forms like giant horsetails, and there's all sorts of cool stuff. So Pennsylvanian period is really cool. So yeah. And for the past probably 250 million years, we are in a really fossil-rich, really prosperous ecosystem. It's awesome. It's really cool. However, there has been something kind of forming in the background of this really peaceful, prosperous ecosystem called Pangea. Pangea is starting to come together. At the roughly around the time of the Permian period is when that final big collision that happens between North America and Africa forms the supercontinent of Pangea. So Pangea is, we hear a lot about it. We don't really think about what life was like on it though. And I'm gonna go into a little bit of a tangent here about life on Pangea. Fish. Okay, you see this, this is the collision here. You see North America and Africa. This is a very simplified version of this. It's a lot more complicated than this. But basically what happens is all these continents kind of come together to form this really big continent called Pangea, of course. And then fish. Pangea is not a fun place to live. Okay, so Pangea, having all the continents in one place creates some really unfortunate circumstances for things that live there. So for our lovely coal swamp forests, now there's been a huge mountain building event that has completely lifted the Appalachian Basin, a couple thousand feet. We didn't see the Himalayan mountains that you hear about, the mountains the size of the Himalayas. Those were further west towards Philly and all that. What we had a large uplift of land, and what that did is that put us in a very dry environment now. So all of this land was pushed up in really relatively solid blocks, so we don't get a whole lot of folding of sedimentary beds either. So if you ever look at a roadside outcrop in this part of the state, you'll see that the beds of rock that we see, the flat layers, are relatively flat. So we didn't get a lot of folding, but it was just pushed up really far. That made a really arid environment where a lot of the really cool life forms that I just talked about could not live. And so instead of this being a really cool forest, now we're in a desert. And that's what most of Pangea was, a big, dry desert. It's not a great place to live. It's very arid. There are hurricanes that form in that one big ocean. Remember, now we have one big continent, we have one big ocean too. And that one big ocean is also mostly sitting around the equator. And so what we have are evidence for hurricanes, both geologists have run computer models, and then also we see in sedimentary beds hurricanes from, I can't say the word, what's a better word? The underworld, hurricanes from the underworld, who just absolutely massive scale, just storms of a scale that we have not seen on Earth pretty much since, because it's that really big, wide ocean that's allowed to heat up really a lot, and there's no land to disrupt the hurricanes. And so we have evidence of really intense storms during the Triassic period. Also, crocodiles, a form of an animal, a couple of different types of animals, decide that they're gonna take the form of a crocodile that can run, fish. And these things grew to 20 feet long. That's a real animal. They find fossils for these all the time in the Triassic period. They only find fossils of these in the Triassic period, pretty much. Well, there's a couple in the Permian, but mostly the Triassic period. And crocodiles that can run, they're pretty scary. I'd say they're a lot more scary than dinosaurs. And it's just not a pleasant place to live. But yeah, Pangea kind of sucked, not gonna lie. All right. It's also the reason that we don't have, also, Pangea, like I said, dysfunctional polycule. All these people, all these continents come together, they immediately start arguing with each other. Cracks form in that bond between the continents almost instantaneously. Within a couple million years, the Pangea is trying to rift itself apart. it forms these large lakes called Triassic rift basins, where we get a lot of Triassic fossils. These are the one exception to when I say that Pangaea is mostly a desert environment. And it is basically these continents basically try to rip themselves apart. They form large lakes and expansive. We actually have one near Philly. It's called the Gettysburg Subbasin. These are red sedimentary rocks. And then when it does finally manage to break itself apart, it decides in the end to cause the largest magmatic eruption that we have evidence for, like in geologic timescales, like ever. All along the East Coast, we have something called the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, and this is when Pangaea finally does break itself apart, and it just floods the entire East Coast with lava. There are other parts of the world where this also occurs, so we have pretty good evidence that there was a very large volcanic eruption erupting like millions upon millions of cubic feet of lava onto the surface, and it really just floods the landscape. It doesn't even like have the decency to form basic volcanoes. It just floods everything. So we have a lot of these things called diabase dikes all up and down the East Coast, and these are the roots of that continent, or that eruption. So we actually don't have great deposits of those existing lavas that would have flooded the land. Those have all been eroded away, but yeah. So that kind of falls apart. This is a image of a Triassic rift basin. This is what that would have looked like. This is really, in general, what the Triassic era would have looked like, but yeah. You have some early dinosaurs, huge expansive lake, and otherwise pretty dry, arid land, so, yep. All right, we don't have any dinosaur fossils in Pennsylvania, and we actually don't have any dinosaur-aged fossils in Western Pennsylvania at all. So another thing that little Pangaea episode did is it made us an environment that went from accumulating sediment to, and basically that's where we get sediment falling into the Appalachian Basin and forming rocks, to an area that we're giving sediment to other places. So that means that we actually don't get any more fossils, we don't get any more rocks. All of our rocks in Pennsylvania are eroding away and washing out down, effectively the Mississippi River. I forget what it was called during that era, but today the modern Arista River, and it still does that to this day. So we know there were dinosaurs in Pennsylvania because we have actual fossils in North Carolina and New Jersey. However, we don't know anything about what they would have looked like in Pennsylvania, except for just like educated guesses based on like other forms. So yeah, it's very unfortunate, but we don't hardly have any Mesozoic beds in Western Pennsylvania. The closest like dinosaur-aged rocks you get are in around the like I said, that Gettysburg Subbasin, which is Triassic in age. You will have Triassic fossils there out near Philly. So yeah. Okay, so glaciers actually do pick. So glaciers actually redirected. There's not a whole lot of things to like noteworthy geology to talk about in between like the time of like the start of the dinosaurs and like relatively recently. However, ice ages later on do come through and carve a lot of that landscape out. So we actually have a lot of rivers that have been redirected as a result of melting glaciers at the end of the ice age. So when those glaciers melt, all that material gets washed out, and it redirects a lot of our rivers, carves out wider river valleys, and it actually pushes the Ohio River, which is out on those rivers. We actually, Pittsburgh sits on the confluence, meaning the meeting point of three rivers: the Allegheny, the river that starts with an M that I'm not going to try and pronounce. Monongahela, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, awesome. Okay, the Monongahela, and that creates the Ohio River. The Ohio River is actually pushed south by a pretty significant amount of miles from its original position by the melting glaciers. So yeah, little fun fact there. Okay, so that's pretty much the last thing that happens geologically in the area that I want to note. Okay, disclaimer on everything I just said. A gross generalization of everything. To keep it within time, I've had to simplify a lot. So hopefully you enjoyed that though. I have all sorts of really cool specimens up here to kind of on display, and then I also have for everyone, hopefully, maybe, we'll see, as many as I can give out. I have snowflake obsidian for everyone. These guys come from Glass Butte in Oregon. They're really pretty, they're really cool looking. I actually forgot them in my hotel room this morning, had to drive back to my hotel. And on the road back to the hotel, had somebody sideswipe me with a boat they rented. So, these rocks, we went through quite a bit of trouble to get these here. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that panel. Please come talk to me, talk to each other, get to know each other. And I love seeing everyone here. Oh my gosh, this is the longest crowd I've had, by the way. I'm so excited. But I'm gonna take this seat head off because I can already feel myself overheating. So, I love you all. Woo!
You want to look at rocks?